The Host, or 괴물, directly translated in Korean to monster, is a box office hit, one of the most watched South Korean films ever. It's directed by Bong Joon-ho, the director for the movie Parasite. The Host is about an American military pathologist that orders his assistant to dump 200 bottles of formaldehyde, a highly toxic chemical, down the drain that ultimately ended up in South Korea's most important Han River. In result, the chemical would mutate the animals living inside the river, resulting in a strange and powerful creature to be born. The amphibious creature would haunt Seoul City, also potentially carrying a deadly virus that would scare the entire world. Now, this movie is surprisingly based on a true story that happened in 2000. And actually, no other YouTubers have covered this case, including like Korean documentary crews, so you're getting it first from me. But a big shout out and the credit of how I knew about the story was because a former CID officer, Tom Barnes, I did an interview with him regarding the McFarland case. You should check that out. He was the one who told me that this movie was actually based on the real life because he was there and worked on the case on base. The case is also written in his book, and because he worked in Korea as a CID officer, there's a lot of criminal cases that he worked on regarding South Korea. So if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link down below of where you can find this book. I also read most comments that you guys leave, and you guys always tell me that you're watching these thrilling videos while eating breakfast or dinner or lunch. And as thrilling as these stories might be, and to keep these sensitive mystery video channels alive, thank you so much to Cook Unity. You know those times when you want to go to restaurants and get celebrity meals, but it's too expensive, or you don't want to go out? Through Cook Unity, you could get award-winning chef meals delivered right to your home. There's over 70 chefs. These meals are made in micro kitchens and not warehouses. They use high-quality ingredients just like at the restaurants, but you get it at your home. My personal favorite was the Thai coconut curry soup. This was so savory and so good. My second favorite was the steak. Like, this is delivered to my door. How does this steak still stay juicy? So I got to try so many different chef-created dishes throughout the week, and it felt like going to a different restaurant like each day. All you do is pop these in the microwave or in the stove. They're super quick and convenient. My dad loves to bring this to his lunch. There's also different preferences from vegan, paleo, gluten-free. There's so much different menus and chefs to choose from, so you will never get bored. So go to cookunity.com/GRAZYTV to try out and use code GRAZYTV50 and you can get 50% off your first order. This is a huge deal, guys. All right, let's get back to the video. Have you ever watched the movie The Host? So the movie takes place in Han River. This is one of the longest and the most famous rivers in South Korea. I believe this also stretches to North Korea as well. This is also one of the most important sources of drinking water, obviously recycled. Also during the warmer seasons like spring and summer, everybody flocks to the Han River, gets their picnic stuff out and have a nice picnic, go to the 편의점. I mean, this is something that everybody does. I've been here a couple times as well. So this river is huge and really important for the citizens of Korea. In the movie The Host, people realize that fish and natural life inside of Han River starts to die off. Until one day they notice a large amphibious creature that just grew bigger and bigger, and finally when it's big enough, it gets hungry and have an appetite to eat people. Rumors spread fast that the creature originated from a virus, kind of similar to what we've been going through for the last 3 years, the pandemic. People are in hazmat suits thinking that a virus has created these monsters. Spoiler alert, later throughout the movie, we find out that it wasn't actually a virus that was responsible for this creature. So like I said earlier in the movie, the creature actually came to be because of an American pathologist. He was responsible for dumping a large amount of toxin chemicals down the drain without proper procedure, which the drains eventually ends up in the sewer, which ends up in the Han River. Now, obviously, it sounds like a pretty fantasy story, right? But you'll be surprised this was based on a true story. So in the year 2000, there was an American military base in Seoul located in Yongsan. This is one of the reasons why Itaewon is also known as a foreigner's town, because Yongsan is right next to Itaewon. And as many of you might already know, there's many US military bases in South Korea because technically South and North Korea technically are at like a pause in a war. There's no peace treaty that was signed, so technically like a war can break out anytime. So since the 50s, specifically 1953 when the war halted, US have been helping protect South Korea ever since. So there was an American military mortician named Albert L McFarland. He was in his 50s back then, and he was a director at a section. So technically, I guess he was kind of in the top as a military mortician, and and he had all the staff and the assistants that worked for him. Obviously, you need a mortician on site in military bases, but technically, I mean, there is no active war in South Korea, so I can't imagine how many Americans really die in war in South Korea. I'm imagining almost zero. I'm just wondering what a mortician in South Korea, specifically in the US military base, would do day-to-day basis, because there wouldn't be that many dead soldiers there. So one day in February 2000, McFarland orders one of his Korean staff assistant to pour down a toxic chemical called formaldehyde. According to that Korean assistant, the reason McFarland wanted to pour these and get rid of them was because there was dust on the bottle and he wanted to use new ones or get rid of like the old stuff. So what is this chemical used for, and is it really highly toxic? Now, it's used for various reasons, from building materials, disinfectant, fungicide, but especially mortaries are used as a preservative. If exposed in large, high levels, it's known that this can cause cancer and birth defects. Obviously, a big no-no. Now, in the movie, they disposed only 200, but in real life, McFarland ordered the Korean staff to dispose 480 bottles of this toxic chemical, and each bottle had 487 milliliters of the liquid. Now, this equals to about 61 gallons in total of toxic waste. Again, if you pour this in a regular drain, it goes down to the sewage system and ends up in the Han River. From what I've read, the proper way to dispose this is you have to neutralize it with some other chemicals, and you have to put it down like a special medical drain where toxic chemicals are disposed properly and kept away from obviously any rivers and sea and things like that. None of that was done. He was just ordered to dump this, and the staff member said, "This is a highly toxic chemical. We can't do this, sir. You know, this is gonna cause cancer and blah, blah, blah. It's gonna end up in the Han River." But McFarland said, "Shut up, just do it." And apparently he started to curse at the Korean staff, saying, "Just do what you're told to." He also claimed that because Han River was so large and vast, technically 61 gallons is like nothing compared to how much water is out there. Now, if you understand the military system, I have friends who are in the military. Military is all about discipline and listening to the higher up. So you cannot rebel or like say no if someone is a higher rank than you. If an upper director tells you to do something, you have to do it. You just have to shut up and listen. Funny enough, the Korean member, thinking that this was going to be a big deal, like he took photos when they were actually dumping this, which was a smart idea. So these are apparently the real photos that happened in real life. This is the movie, and this is real life. So the Korean staff member, let's call him Mr. Lee, after this whole dumping, he says that he felt ill, like really sick for 3 weeks. He had headaches, he had other sicknesses that was just uncontrollable, throwing up, vomit. So Lee, being really sick and kind of angered and really worried about what he has done, feeling guilty, he ended up telling another military officer, an upper officer, and he came with the response saying, "It's fine. There was no problem and no harm to the environment." Being angered at the response that he got, he decided to report it to the Green Committee in Korea. The Green Committee is like environmental protection group, and this is when finally 5 months after the Korean police got involved. So the K police and USFK, the US force in Korea, were going back and forth that they cannot prosecute McFarland in South Korea because he was protected under the SOFA law. SOFA is like an agreement between US and Korea for US citizens living in South Korea, and some of the clause under SOFA is that you cannot investigate or arrest anyone inside the military base because technically it belongs to the US. Korean police were trying to bring criminal charges against McFarland, but the military were really protecting him. USFK argued that the South Korean side cannot recognize criminal jurisdictions in cases that occurred while the US military was on official duty. So anything that happened on US military base while the person was on duty during work must be tried if they are under American laws or under the SOFA laws. The K police tried to serve legal papers to McFarland, but because he was living on base, Korean police are not legally allowed to enter there at all or arrest anybody. Military personnel would stand in front of the base and would not allow these legal documents to be served, so Korean police didn't even know how to get to him. On top of that, apparently it was kind of useless to put travel restrictions to McFarland because military personnel have their own like airport in the US military bases, and they can leave the country using the US military airport, so they couldn't investigate his entry and exit records to South Korea. And this actually happened a couple times in the past. So US military soldiers stationed in South Korea were accused of committing horrific crimes like murder. Another case I covered was these two girls who were killed by the US soldiers' tanks. Leading up to this, there was also many cases of oil dumping by the military base. And none of these soldiers actually getting a proper punishment for what they've done, and were frustrated that SOFA law was protecting people from criminal behaviors in another country. I do have to highlight, we're talking about the bad apples and situations here. There are more good people out there in my opinion, and I really respect the soldiers who serve, especially in another country. So without really being able to do anything about it, the Korean authorities still decided to go ahead with the charges without the actual suspect appearing in court, which is highly rare. And in March of 2001, McFarland was charged with only $5,000 penalty. From there were many protests from environmentalists, from citizens. They were really angry, accusing them of being very careless, putting the citizens of Korea's life at risk. Because of this, Korean authorities decided to charge McFarland again. And finally, it took about 5 years to come to this conclusion. And in the appeal trial in January of 2005, he was sentenced to 6 months in prison with 2 years probation. And the US military did apologize and admit their wrongdoings back in 2000. Back then, many claimed that because still the sewage system in Korea cleans and filters out any toxins, that there was no problems to the millions of people depending on this as drinking and bathing water. And I cannot find anywhere of any aftermath that some people were directly linked, which would be very difficult to find in the first place because Han River is large and there is a sewage system, but I'm sure these kind of stuff take years for you to build up in your body and then see some kind of a negative side effect. So were some people directly affected by this? I mean, maybe not. We will never technically know. So was there a real monster in South Korea due to this? Now, there were some questionable large fish. I mean, this type of fish, which kind of looks like the host and what it was inspired from. It's a river, it's not the sea. So to find these kind of big fishes is pretty interesting. Is this directly linked to a mutation? I don't think so. These are photos from 2019 where fish in the Han River with mutated vertebrates appeared, and they believe this is a result due to pollution. This is not related to the formaldehyde McFarland's case, but from other pollutions. And environmentalists firmly believe that human pollutions do cause abnormal mutations, and it could be a serious issue. Recently in 2021, there was someone that filmed a host monster in the Han River. It really looked like a monster. It was being pulled by something, but nothing was near it. So what was this being pulled by? Now, experts say that this is probably like a plastic floaty. So I do believe it was a plastic floaty and not a monster. But what was this being pulled by? There was no boats or anything nearby. So the ultimate question is, do you guys think there are real monsters out there due to the environmental factors from humans? Possible to have this kind of a big of a mutation where it leads to monsters that get back at us? In my opinion, it's kind of low-key sad that the monster was a result of human waste. It's not like he was asked to be born. And spoiler alert, yet he died by the hands of humans. I talked about in my main channel in my recent Korea vlog that I was staying at this Airbnb in Gangnam, and Korea is known to have really bad tap water system. So you cannot drink tap water in there, but it's really hard water. And in this specific Airbnb, the water smelled like chemicals, it literally smelled like bleach, and I was like, where is this coming from? And I would smell the water, but it didn't sting my eyes or my mouth. But I'm like, what kind of chemicals are they using to filter the water? Because it was pretty strong. If you live in Korea, I highly recommend getting some kind of a filter system. I also think it teaches us that even us living day to day, do not throw toxic oils down the drain. Apparently some people have leftover oils from frying their foods that people just pour down the drain. That's a hell no. Or even me, I feel bad every time I buy something and there's just bunch of plastics that I'm just throwing away. Especially in America, there isn't a great recycling system. I mean, is there a great recycling system in your country? countries, at least where I live, it's not. I also switched my candles to natural beeswax and coconut oil, and I decided to make candles myself now instead of buying these petroleum-based oils that's bad for the air and throwing it away. It never degrades. I also switched my cotton pads to reusable cottons that I can use every single night and in the morning, so I'm not constantly throwing things away. Even all the clothes, fast fashion that we buy, it's all polyester, which is basically plastic made from petroleum oil. So I have significantly reduced me buying a lot of fast fashion, and I tried to look for more higher quality materials like 100% cotton or any natural material that will eventually break down and that I could use over and over again. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys do to be environmentally friendly. Is there something that you switched out every single day so that you can be more eco-friendly? Let us know any tips down below. If you liked today's video, remember a like in the video. It helps me out so much. It really helps the algorithm, especially my channel. Mystery videos can be very sensitive. And see you in my next video.